Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and we're bringing you this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. And like always, ladies and gentlemen, we have an expansive list of stories for you to cover. It's your one-stop shop to understand and catch the news pulse of the day. We will be shifting our focus to the 66th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. Some top international global developments as well. Vis-a-vis Donald Trump going to take the stand again. Egyptian presidential polls, day 2 of polling today. Vladimir Putin, some of the opposition members in Russia are trying to fan discontent. There's a QR code that will lead you to a Not Putin website. However, the website has been taken down. The banners have been taken down from all across of Moscow, but that's not all. We're going to be shifting our focus and touching upon climate change stories as well, bringing you stories from the world of entertainment and sports as well. But back at home, domestically, a lot of movements on the political chessboard as well. Updates from there. But first and foremost, it's a big day today because the Supreme Court is set to deliver its verdict today in the case challenging the Union government's 2019 abrogation of Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir. The 370 verdict, the Supreme Court is set to deliver its verdict today in this particular case, challenging the Union government's 2019 decision to repeal the special status of Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370 of the Constitution. Now, the Constitution bench, led by Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, had reserved the judgment back on the 5th of September this year after an extensive 16-day-long hearing. Some of those visuals on your screens over there as well. The petitioners in the matter had challenged not only the abrogation of Article 370, but also the J&K Reorganization Act, which resulted in the bifurcation of the state into union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. In terms of the key arguments that were presented in the hearings, the government argued that the abrogation was necessary to fully integrate Jammu and Kashmir into the Union of India. They claimed that the valley had prospered in the past 4.5 years after the repealment of Article 370 back in 2019. The government stated that elections were due in Jammu and Kashmir, and once the situation returned to normal, it would revert to full statehood. Now, the centre contended that the abrogation led to the significant reduction in terrorism, infiltration, stone pelting and casualties among security personnel as well. On the other hand, the petitioners that challenged the repealment of the Article 370, they argued that the union used brute majority. They said that the move was an attack on federalism. They argued that the Article 370 had assumed a permanent character after the dissolution of the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly in 1957, and several other arguments over there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to bore you with the legal terminology. We have a legal expert. My colleague, legal editor, is soon going to be with us as well. But before that, let's quickly listen in to all the reactions that have come across from major stakeholders, and then we'll quickly cut across to the legal expert with us on the panel.
इस वक्त तो एक अंदाज़ा ही लगाना है, तो कल 10 बजे जब जजमेंट आएगी, वर्डिक्ट आएगा, तो उस वक्त पता चलेगा कि क्या है कि कश्मीरियों के हक में है, जम्मू कश्मीर के अवाम के हक में है या उनके खिलाफ है। इस वक्त हम यही कह सकते हैं कि हम 2 महीने में या 4 महीने से इंतज़ार नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम गुज़िश्ता 4 साल से ज़्यादा अरसे से इस दिन का इंतज़ार कर रहे थे कि कब सुप्रीम कोर्ट, क्योंकि पहले 3 साल में तो कोई सुनवाई हुई नहीं, सिर्फ एक दफ़ा आधे घंटे की सुनवाई हुई थी, और जिसका हमने भी, मैंने खुद भी और मेरे साथियों ने अपनी पब्लिक मीटिंगों में पिछले 1-1.5 साल से कहा कि जब तक सुप्रीम कोर्ट इसको डे टू डे हियरिंग नहीं करेगी तो तब तक फैसला आना 50 साल में भी नामुमकिन है। मैं मशकूर हूँ सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कि उन्होंने आलमोस्ट कभी कभी डेली बेसिस पे इसकी सुनवाई शुरू की। सब लोगों ने, सरकार ने, दूसरे लोगों ने, इंडिपेंडेंट लोगों ने, जो किसी पार्टी से भी ताल्लुक़ नहीं रखते थे, उन्होंने भी अपनी याचिकाएं, अपनी एप्लीकेशन सुप्रीम कोर्ट की तरफ रुजू किया, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जब से सुनवाई की तब से उन्होंने ज़्यादा समय नहीं लगाया। उनका आभार प्रकट करता हूँ, उनका शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ। लेकिन इस तवक्को के साथ कि जो सरकार ने गैर कानूनी फैसला लिया था, क्योंकि ये पावर्स असेंबली की इलेक्टेड गवर्नर के पास थी, नॉमिनेटेड गवर्नर के पास नहीं थी, स्टेट को भंग करना और रिकमेंड करना, तो उस तरीके से ये अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है और बहुत भी कई चीज़ें हैं जिसकी वजह से अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन
देखिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने पहले ही कई बार एक तो इस मुद्दे को सुनने में बहुत देर कर दी, 5 साल लगाए इस मुद्दे को सुनने में। उसके बाद मैं समझती हूँ कि खुद सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कई बार जो पुराने हमारे जजमेंट्स आई हैं उसमें ये कहा गया है कि 370 को जम्मू कश्मीर की कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के बगैर कोई नहीं हटा सकता है जी। तो मुझे लगता है ये फैसला तो सीधा होना चाहिए कि ये जो उन्होंने किया 2019 5 अगस्त को वो नाजायज था, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ था, जम्मू कश्मीर के खिलाफ था। जो जम्मू कश्मीर के साथ वादे किए गए 1947 में उन वादों के खिलाफ है। जो मैं पिछले कल रात से देख रही हूँ जिस तरह से
See, this is a very important, significant issue which is to be decided by Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has heard the matter at length. And people of Jammu and Kashmir are expecting a lot from the Supreme Court. And we believe that Supreme Court will rightly uphold the Constitution as well as the sentiments of the people. All rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir which were protected earlier with regard to land and jobs, they were abruptly, unilaterally and democratically taken away. His state was downgraded and disbanded, divided into two UTs.
Well, so those were just some of those reactions. We've safeguarded a lot of them. We'll continue to play them out. It's a rolling coverage on News 9, ladies and gentlemen. Continue to be with us throughout the day. Let's cut across to my colleague and legal editor, Ashok Bagria, who joins us on the broadcast. Ashok, a very good morning to you. How are you feeling this, eventful morning? The Supreme Court is going to deliver its verdict on this 16-day long hearing that finally happened. And you and I, we were both talking about it in the advent of this particular judgment by the Supreme Court. I've seen you wear those headphones and very closely monitor the 16-day hearing as well. And the obiter dicta around it also was a low-key history lesson into what Jammu and Kashmir had to offer. But a recap for the viewers, what were some of those prime arguments that were put forth, and what are you expecting today?
Okay, hi, very good morning, Kabir. So here, what the Supreme Court is dealing with is the question around the legality of abolition or taking away the special status of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which was given to it under Article 370 of the Constitution. On August 6, 2019, the Government of India passed a law, a presidential order, where they took away the special status which was granted to the state of Jammu and Kashmir under the Constitution. Not just that, it converted the state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories. One, the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and the other, the union territory of Ladakh. Now, as soon as that happened, there were a clutch of petitions which were filed in the Supreme Court of India. In fact, there are 18 petitions before a bench of 5 judges. These petitions have been filed by politicians, political parties, academics, journalists, and civil society members. All of them are raising the one single point that the abolition or abrogation of Article 370 done by the Government of India was constitutionally illegal. It is not permissible until and unless the views of the people of the state is taken into account. Now, how do you take into account the views of the people? Because there is no state legislature. At that particular point in time, when the Government of India passed this presidential order, there was no state legislature. It had been dissolved. And the governor of the state of Jammu and Kashmir acted as their representatives. These petitioners in the Supreme Court said that the governor is nominated by the central government and he cannot correctly reflect or be a mirror of the wishes of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Number two. Number three, another argument was raised that under Article 370, without a constituent assembly of the state, it cannot be abolished. Number three, this whole idea of federalism, which is the relationship between the union government and the state governments, has been demolished. So the crux of the argument, if I were to put it in two lines, the crux of the argument is that the revocation of special status by the government of India was impermissible under the Constitution of India, and it should be declared as illegal by the Supreme Court of India.
All right, all right. And you know what, Ashok? The bench's comments and queries, I remember D.Y. Chandrachud, categorically calling out why is Article 370 in the temporary, transitional and the special provision section is inclusion of Article 1 indicative that it was never meant to be permanent in the first place? Does Article 370 lie beyond Parliament's amending power? I mean, there were several questions that were put forth. And, I've been talking to so many people, household people, the laymen out there, talking to them about 370. Most of them don't even know that a big verdict is set to come today. And many of them saying that, hasn't it already been abrogated? What are some of the outcomes that can be expected today? A, will the status again be bestowed upon Jammu and Kashmir? Will it not happen? What are some of the possible outcomes that can come out today from the Supreme Court?
Well, Kabir, you're putting me in a tight spot. What you are essentially asking me is to make a guess as to what the judgment is going to be. But anyways, I'll take that challenge. And according to me, what I believe is that the way the hearing was conducted in the Supreme Court was basically trying to explore all the alternatives which are available to it. The first thing was that the petitioner's demand saying that please scrap this presidential order which has abrogated Article 370, which means going back to a situation which existed 4 years back, giving special status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now that's an extreme relief that the petitioners are seeking. On the other hand, the other extreme relief would be that the Supreme Court does not intervene and the Supreme Court upholds that the Parliament had the power to carry out this change and abrogate Article 370. What appears to me is that in the court, instead of taking either of these two extreme positions, will be taking some kind of a middle path. Now, a middle path, why I say a middle path could be taken by the Supreme Court is the fact that during the course of the hearing, the Supreme Court had asked the Solicitor General of India categorically that, look, here is an argument which is being made by the petitioners that you have reduced this state of Jammu and Kashmir to a union territory which is not permissible without ascertaining the wishes of the state legislature. How do you respond to it? And in fact, at that point in time, the Solicitor General said that, look, my lords, this is not a permanent feature. As soon as the conditions become conducive in the state, the Jammu and Kashmir will revert back to statehood. And the Supreme Court was convinced. And in fact, I remember the Chief Justice of India making a remark saying that this kind of an arrangement can be done by the government of India if there are larger security concerns for a temporary period of time. So what looks to me like is that the court is going to say that there were strong conditions that were present for the government of India to take such an extreme measure. It is permissible under law. And moreover, we have a statement from the government of India that the state of that Jammu and Kashmir will revert back to statehood. So we are convinced that there was nothing illegal about revocation of Article 370.
Right. Very interestingly, the middle ground that you're speaking about, we're going to have to delve a little bit more on this. But Ashok, do stay on with us. Let's quickly listen into some more political reactions. We've got Rashid Alvi, we've got Priyanka Chaturvedi. So, people away from Jammu and Kashmir, their reactions on what's going to happen inside the Apex Court today. On your screens next.
मैं पूरी उम्मीद है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट संविधान के मुताबिक फ़ैसला करेगी, कश्मीर के लोगों के जज्बात को नज़रअंदाज नहीं किया जाएगा, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो भी फैसला आएगा उसका सम्मान किया जाएगा। निश्चित तौर से कश्मीर का मामला है और 370 जिस तरीके से ख़त्म किया गया था, तमाम कश्मीर के नेताओं को जेल में डालकर 7 लाख 8 लाख फ़ौज लगा के एक घर पे फ़ौजी खड़ा करके इस तरीके से कभी न कोई कानून बनाया जाता है ना ख़त्म किया जाता है। निश्चित तौर से कश्मीर के लोगों के जज्बात को ठेस पहुंची है अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट संविधान के मुताबिक क्या फैसला करता है, इसका इंतज़ार पूरे देश को नहीं है, पूरी दुनिया को है।
370 धारा एक टेम्पररी मेजर लगाई गई थी। खुद पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी ने कहा था उस समय पर, जब जम्मू और कश्मीर पे काफी विवाद चल रहा था। हमारी मान्यता स्पष्ट ये थी, शिवसेना की भूमिका ये रही है कि 370 को हटाने का समय आ गया था और वो हटाया गया। उसके चलते जो वादे भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने किए थे, जब हटाया गया तो हम उसके समर्थन में थे, पर वादा ये किया गया था कि प्रजातंत्र बहाल होगा, वहां पे इलेक्शंस जल्द से जल्द होंगे, जनता की सरकार बनकर आएगी, जो आतंकी हमले हैं वो खत्म होंगे, कश्मीरी पंडित भाई बहन, जो हमारा एजेंडा बाला साहेब ठाकरे जी के समय से रहा है कि वो वापस अपने घर पहुंचे, वो पूरा करेंगे। पर मैं खुद ही जम्मू गई थी जब टारगेटेड किलिंग के शिकार हमारे कश्मीरी पंडित भाई बहन हुए हैं, तो उनके साथ जो नाइंसाफी अब तक चल रही है वो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। और जो वादा किए थे 370 हटाने के बाद, वो आज तक पूरे नहीं किए गए हैं। वो मैं मानती हूं जनता के साथ एक खिलवाड़ हुआ है।
Well, so some of those political reactions, and we'll continue to play more of those during the course of the day. Ashok, before we end this first little segment on Article 370, and it's going to be a rolling coverage, like I mentioned, for all the viewers out there, the actual pain points on the ground, some of them which people can actually feel. I was taking a look at the pre-abrogation and the post-abrogation, some of those pointers and infographics that all media portals are putting out. Special powers that were exercised by J&K, now they cease to exist. But on the other hand, there was dual citizenship before, now it's just single citizenship. There was a separate flag for J&K. The tricolor now is the only flag that's going to be adhered to. Article 360, which is financial emergency, was not applicable before. It is now going to be applicable. Right to education, talk about women marrying out of their state, buying land inside there in Kashmir. All of these things, delving away from the legal aspect of it, some societal pain points. Has the abrogation attracted people more, or has it created more of a dissent ever since 2019?
Well, if we were to go by what the government of India has been saying in the Supreme Court of India, is the fact that, number one, after the abrogation of Article 370, one thing that has improved in the valley is that there has been not a single incident of violence, not a single incident of stone pelting after 2019, which goes on to show that the people have accepted abrogation of Article 370. The special status going away has not created any difficulty in their lives. But at the same time, let us also remember that people of Jammu and Kashmir have been living for the last 75 years under a particular set of rules and laws that have existed, where Article 370 has protected the rights of the people living in the state. So, for instance, you rightly pointed out that before the abrogation of Article 370, a person, an Indian from any other part of the country, could not go to the state of Jammu and Kashmir and purchase land. There were other restrictions which have been in place. Now, what 370 did was, once 370 was abolished, this particular state of Jammu and Kashmir has been brought on par with other states in the Indian Union. So any citizen of India who enjoys whatever kind of rights in other parts of the country will enjoy the same rights in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. You spoke about a separate flag of the state of Jammu and Kashmir that can continue. There is no bar on it. Then there is another talk of a separate constitution that can also exist. There's not a bar on it. But these are small nitty-gritty things that will have to be tightened or determined by the central government and the state government after the Supreme Court ruling.
Right.
Another one interesting thing that I wanted to speak here, Kabir, is the fact that once the central government began its argument, the central government was of the view that if Article 370 had not been abolished, it would have had a devastating effect on the people of that state. And they said, the central government said that, look, here is a state, or here is a situation which is a state of the Union of India, where people are denied certain fundamental rights. What the government of India has done is abolish that kind of a disparity, given people of state of Jammu and Kashmir access to those fundamental rights. Welfare schemes which have been floated by the government of India, they were not available to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now that has been made available. So all in all, what the government of India is saying is that, look, the whole move by the government of India has been wholly accepted by the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
Absolutely. Pertinent points that you're making there, Ashok. Many thanks for joining with us on this first little update in the run-up to the judgment that's going to come across from the Apex Court very soon. We're going to keep coming back to you, Ashok. Many thanks for joining with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to slip into a quick break over here. But on the other side, and in the meantime, do catch on to this. Two members of the Scindia family that are going to play a decisive role in the politics of Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, namely Jyotiraditya Scindia and Vasundhara Raje. Are they the probable chief ministerial candidates now that the BJP has won the assembly elections over there? Take a look.
Jyotiraditya Scindia is also facing a litmus test.
There have been corruption charges against all the chief ministers or towering leaders who were rich, but this is not the case with Scindia. So the point is that in modern times, when the society is looking up to good leaders, Jyotiraditya Scindia could be one of them.
As far as Jyotiraditya Scindia is concerned, even if the BJP loses, Jyotiraditya Scindia will be around for at least another 2 decades. He is young and he has the ability to come back.
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Well, taking a look at some other domestic developments and top news that we're covering for you this news hour. Former Union Minister Vishnu Deo Sai, a 4-time Lok Sabha Member of Parliament and 2-time Member of Legislative Assembly in the undivided Madhya Pradesh, has been officially named as the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh by the Bharatiya Janata Party. The announcement comes after days of speculation and follows the party's remarkable electoral success in the state. And not just that, in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan as well, marking a significant turnaround from the 2018 elections. Now, according to reports, former Chief Minister Raman Singh is being considered for the role of the Speaker of the Assembly. There is also a possibility of having 2 Deputy Chief Ministers, with Arun Sao and Vijay Sharma emerging as potential candidates for these positions. Now, notably, both leaders are first-time MLAs. Vijay Sharma secured victory in his inaugural election, whilst Arun Sao has previously served as a Member of Parliament.
आभार व्यक्त करना चाहूंगा। साथ ही साथ छत्तीसगढ़ में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की बड़ी सफलता के लिए छत्तीसगढ़ के लाखों कार्यकर्ताओं को भी धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा, जिन्होंने रात दिन मेहनत करके भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताया। साथ ही साथ हमारे राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व, हमारे देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, हमारे देश के यशस्वी गृह मंत्री आदरणीय अमित शाह जी, हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष आदरणीय श्री जगत प्रकाश नड्डा जी सहित और अनेकों राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व, हमारे केंद्र सरकार के मंत्री छत्तीसगढ़ में चुनाव प्रचार के लिए आए और यहाँ पर छत्तीसगढ़ में पूरे चुनाव प्रचार का कमान आदरणीय ओम प्रकाश माथुर जी संभाले हुए थे और उनका रिकॉर्ड है, तो जहाँ पर भी जाते हैं चुनाव जिताते हैं और उनके मार्गदर्शन में हमारा पूरा प्रदेश नेतृत्व, पूरा प्रदेश के हमारे लाखों कार्यकर्ता चुनाव प्रचार में जुटे और भारतीय जनता पार्टी को अभूतपूर्व सफलता दिलाए। इसके लिए आदरणीय ओम प्रकाश माथुर जी, सह प्रभारी हमारे मनसुख भाई मांडविया जी, नितिन नवीन जी और हमारे जो प्रदेश के नेतृत्व हैं, उन सबको भी मैं बधाई और धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा, जिनके अथक प्रयास से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की इतनी बड़ी सफलता मिली और आज हम लोग सरकार बनाने में सफल हुए हैं। एक मुख्यमंत्री के नाते हमारी प्राथमिकता होगी कि आज छत्तीसगढ़ में जिस तरह से 5 साल तक कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार चल रही थी, जिससे हर वर्ग तरस था, और आज इस सरकार से छुटकारा मिला है और हमारी प्राथमिकता रहेगी कि हम लोग।
Well, so it seems like for the Bharatiya Janata Party, Chhattisgarh is a sorted space. But amidst the ongoing suspense over the chief ministerial faces, today, newly elected BJP MLAs in Madhya Pradesh will gather to choose their particular leader. Now, the announcement of the chief minister is anticipated with the meeting scheduled at the BJP state office for the party MLAs. The BJP legislature party will gather its selected leader with central observer Manohar Lal Khattar, Dr. K. Lakshman and Asha Lakra present. Meanwhile, in Rajasthan, ladies and gentlemen, amid the suspense of a chief minister position and Congress citing a lack of discipline, both new and former MLAs gathered at Vasundhara Raje's Jaipur residence. Suspense over CM face may be lifted for the state of Madhya Pradesh today, but rumblings in Rajasthan, ladies and gentlemen. Vasundhara Raje, what's going to happen in the state of Rajasthan? Chhattisgarh sorted, Madhya Pradesh seems like you're getting there, but do you have a grip of exactly what's happening or what's going to happen in the state of Rajasthan? That's the big question. Well, time for me to slip into a quick commercial break here. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now. China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it.
It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. This and more. Streaming on the world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved
10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve. Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Now today the Supreme Court is set to review the plea submitted by Aam Aadmi Party leader Sanjay Singh. This concerns his arrest by the Enforcement Directorate in connection to the alleged Delhi excise policy scam case. Justices Sanjeev Khanna and SNV Bhati will address the matter on the 11th of December as per the court's cause list. Now meanwhile, Special Judge M.K. Nagpal at the Rouse Avenue Court postponed the hearing on Aam Aadmi Party MP's bail plea, scheduling it for the next session on the 12th of December, that is tomorrow. And that's not all for opposition leaders. Delhi High Court will hear a defamation case filed by Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra, or ex-Member of Parliament, after her expulsion. The case was initiated amid accusations suggesting that she received cash and gifts for posing questions to the Lok Sabha. Mahua Moitra initiated a defamation case against individuals Dubey and Jay Anant Dehadrai, along with several media houses, challenging baseless allegations of receiving bribes for posing questions inside the parliament. In her plea, Mahua Moitra appealed to the Delhi High Court for directives restraining Nishikant Dubey and Dehadrai and numerous other media outlets from disseminating or publishing any false and defamatory content about her. Meanwhile, construction works on the Ram temple in Uttar Pradesh's Ayodhya is currently going on in full swing. The General Secretary of the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi Tirath Kshetra Trust, Champat Rai, he unveiled stunning images of the temple's sanctum sanctorum on the 9th of December. Take a look at some of these pictures. This particular preview comes ahead of the consecration ceremony that is scheduled for the 22nd of January 2024 in Ayodhya. Now, Rai mentioned that the sanctum sanctorum of Lord Sri Ram Lala is nearly complete with the recent completion of the lighting and the fitting work. Take a look at some of those startling and spectacular pictures from inside the sanctum sanctorum. These images offered a glimpse into the splendid sanctorum, heightening the anticipation of devotees that are, I'm sure, eagerly awaiting for the consecration of the temple. Meanwhile, Chairman of Ayodhya Ram Mandir Construction Committee, Niprendra Mishra, he visited the construction work for Ram Mandir. On December 8th, the trust had earlier released pictures showcasing the current status of the under construction Ram Janmabhoomi temple. Visuals on your screens. Notably, 3 different artists are sculpting 3 distinct idols of Ram Lala, and the finest among them will be chosen before the consecration on the 22nd of January.
अयोध्या में जो भगवान राम मंदिर का निर्माण हो रहा है उसकी प्रगति समीक्षा की जा रही है और अब तक की समीक्षा से हम आश्वस्त हैं कि 22 जनवरी को जो कार्यक्रम है प्राण प्रतिष्ठा का वह सही और पूर्ण रूप से और एक जो व्यवस्था के अनुकूल हो सकेगा, यह पूरा प्रयास है, आश्वस्त हैं और भगवान राम नए मंदिर में अपना स्थान लेंगे.
Well, next up, our segment on the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. It is the 66th day of the conflict. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature.
Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Well, let's get you the latest updates from the war front right at the top on your screens. Take a look at this. Israel has intensified its military campaign in southern Gaza for another consecutive day. This as Israel strikes over 250 Hamas targets in the last 24 hours, as exclaimed by the Israeli Defense Forces. Meanwhile, 300 people have been killed, over 550 wounded in the last 24 hours, as per Gaza's health ministry. Meanwhile, no hostages are going to be released unless demands are met with. This comes across from the Hamas terrorist group. Israel, on the other hand, says this war could go on for months. Interesting, because the United States has called upon Israel, several reports doing the rounds, calling upon Israel, stressing Netanyahu to end the war before the end of this particular year. Now, Netanyahu has called on Hamas to lay down their arms and surrender now. Meanwhile, Palestinian men were stripped for security reasons. This coming across from Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, who is also the IDF spokesperson. Food, water and fuel used as weapons of war in Gaza. This coming across by UNRWA. Now, the IDF claimed that it struck over 250 terror targets in the last 24 hours. In a message that was posted on Telegram, it stated that IDF troops located and destroyed weapon stocks, carried out targeted raids on military sites, destroyed underground terror tunnel shafts, and thwarted armed terrorist cells planning to attack IDF troops. The IDF reported that an Israeli military fighter jet directed by ground troops struck a Hamas military communications site located adjacent to a mosque in the southern Gaza Strip overnight. Following the strike, the troops conducted a targeted raid on the site. And over the past day, IDF troops fired precise munitions and struck underground tunnel shafts in Khan Yunis as well. In addition, a drone assisted IDF troops in identifying an armed terrorist cell that planned to attack additional IDF troops in the area. The terrorist cell was eliminated. The IDF has also corroborated these statements. The Israeli Defense Forces also claimed that it carried out a raid on Hamas military command center in Shijaya. And we earlier saw those visuals of how the Palestinian detainees were stripped down to their underwear. I'm going to request the control room to put those visuals on air. Israeli Chief Military Spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, he's commented on those viral photographs depicting the detained Palestinian men stripped down to their underwear, which circulated on social media, went viral as well. He stated that the pictures represented a routine security procedure to ensure that detainees were not carrying any hidden explosives. Now, Hagari explained, it's something we have been doing for years during battles because we have had incidents when people have detonated themselves upon our forces. So this is part of the process. Let's listen in to what the IDF spokesperson had to say.
תוך כדי שאנחנו הורגים מחבלים ונלחמים מחבלים, יש כניעה או יציאה החוצה של הרבה מאוד אנשים, חלקם גם חמושים שנפרדים מהנשק, אבל יש גם הרבה גברים שיוצאים החוצה שחלקם היו במרחב הזה. כשאנחנו מזהים קבוצה כזאת שיצאה אלינו החוצה, נכנעה במרחב אחרי שאנחנו קורזים אליה, אנחנו מורידים לה את הבגדים מכיוון שאנחנו חוששים מחגורות נפץ. זה דבר שאנחנו עושים אותו לאורך שנים בלחימה, וגם נתקלנו במקרים שאנשים התפוצצו על כוחותינו. זה חלק מהתהליך. בתהליך הזה מתבצעת גם חקירה. בתוך החקירה הזאת מתגלים גם בשטח אנשי חמאס. לא כולם אנשי חמאס או ארגוני טרור, ולכן הדבר שאנחנו עושים בגמר החקירה, עולים על בגדים, זה מה שצריך לעשות, ואיפה שזה לא קרה, אנחנו נשנה את העניין הזה, כי זה מה שצריך לקרות, ועוצרים את מי שהוא חבר ארגון טרור, ומביאים אותו פה לחקירה. חלק מהחקירות קורות בשטח, וחלק מהאנשים שהם אינם חברי ארגון טרור, אלא אזרחים שהיו במרחב, משוחררים לנקז דרומה, איפה שהאזרחים העזתים נמצאים. התמונות שהופצו הן לא תמונות של דובר צה"ל. אנחנו מנהלים את התמונות שלנו במלחמה, ונחליט מה להוציא החוצה.
Meanwhile, plumes of smoke were seen rising above destroyed buildings near the Israel-Gaza border on Sunday. Israel vowed to annihilate Hamas after the terrorist outfit carried out that deadly assault on southern Israel on the 7th of October, killing about 1,200 people and taking 250 Israelis as hostages. Since then, Gaza's health authorities say about 18,000 people have been confirmed killed and 49,500 injured in Israeli strikes, with thousands more missing and presumed dead under the rubble. And in terms of international diplomacy, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that U.S. is trying to do everything it can to ensure civilians are protected. He said that the U.S. is in almost constant contact with Israelis to ensure that they understand what their obligations are.
Martha, first, we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that civilians are protected, that humanitarian assistance gets into people who need it in Gaza. We are deeply, deeply aware of the terrible human toll that this conflict is taking on innocent men, women, and children, and we're working to minimize that to the greatest extent possible.
Meanwhile, in an emergency board meeting on Sunday, the World Health Organization's Director General described the impact of Israel-Hamas conflict on Gaza's healthcare sector as catastrophic. He emphasized the ideal conditions for the spread of deadly diseases and highlighted the difficulty for the WHO to address the situation amid the ongoing violence. A motion presented by Afghanistan, Morocco, Qatar and Yemen is under consideration, urging passage for medical personnel and supplies while assigning the WHO the responsibility to secure funding for the hospital reconstruction.
But it's stating the obvious to say that the impact of the conflict on health is catastrophic. More than 17,000 people are reported to have died in Gaza, including 7,000 children. And we don't know how many are buried under the rubble of their homes. More than 46,000 injuries have been reported. 1.9 million people have been displaced, almost the entire population of the Gaza Strip, and are looking for shelter anywhere they can find it. But nowhere and no one is safe in Gaza.
Nowhere and no one is safe in all across Gaza Strip. The Israeli army has also released footage that it shows Israeli soldiers carrying out a raid inside a building in Jabalia in northern Gaza. Now, posting on their Telegram channel, the Israeli army said its Yahalom Combat Engineering Unit identified suspicious movement, opened fire and eliminated the terrorists. Meanwhile, Israel pounded the Gaza Strip from the north to the south over the weekend in an expanded phase of its 2-month-old war against Hamas. This after the United States wielded its UN Security Council veto to shield Israel from a global demand for a ceasefire.
There were more Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip on Saturday after the United States vetoed an immediate humanitarian ceasefire at the UN Security Council on Friday.
We regretfully could not support it.
13 of the Security Council's 15 members voted for the resolution.
But we cannot vote in
Britain abstained. Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian UN envoy, said they reject the result.
Ceasefire. Ceasefire. Save lives.
Since the truce collapsed last week, Israel has expanded its ground campaign into the southern half of the Gaza Strip, storming the main southern city of Khan Yunis. The already overwhelmed Nasser hospital in the city has seen the dead and the wounded through the night on Friday. Residents of the city said on Saturday that Israeli forces were ordering people out of another district just west of positions the Israelis stormed earlier this week, suggesting a further assault could be imminent. Both sides have also reported a major surge in fighting in the north. The vast majority of Gaza's 2.3 million residents have already been forced from their homes. UN agencies say there is now effectively nowhere safe to go. Israel disputes that. It says it is limiting harm to civilians by providing them with maps showing areas that are safe. It also blames Hamas for causing civilian deaths by hiding among them. Hamas fighters deny that claim.
There does remain a gap between exactly.
Washington has said it told Israel to do more to protect civilians in the next phase of the war than it has so far. But Washington has continued to support Israel's insistence that a ceasefire would only benefit Hamas. Israel launched its campaign to annihilate Gaza's Hamas rulers after fighters rampaged through Israeli towns on October 7th, killing 1,200 people and capturing 240 hostages, according to Israeli tallies.
Meanwhile, taking a look at some other international developments as well, and cutting across to Egypt, where Egyptians headed to polls on Sunday for a presidential election in which Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is poised to win a third term in power. Now, polls closed on the first day in the Egyptian presidential election in a vote where current President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, it seems, is poised for another 6 more years in power. Voting, which runs from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. and is spread over 3 days, and for which the results are going to be announced on the December 18th. As voting began on Sunday morning, small crowds gathered at polling stations in Cairo, where pictures of Sisi have proliferated in the weeks leading up to the election. Riot police were deployed at entrances to Tahrir Square in the center of the capital. Meanwhile, critics see the election as a sham after a decade-long crackdown on dissent. The government's media body has called it a step towards political pluralism. Meanwhile, victory would hand Sisi a 6-year term in which immediate priorities would certainly be taming the near-record inflation, managing a chronic foreign currency shortage, and preventing spillover from the conflict between Israel and Gaza's Hamas's rulers. The election comes as the country grapples with an economic crisis and a war on its border with Gaza. Meanwhile, that's all the time we have for you in this edition of Top Stories. But up next, on the 26th of November 2008, Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists, with the help of Pakistan, carried out the worst terror attack in India's history. Former NSA M.K. Narayanan recounts why India did not seek revenge for 26/11. Take a look at News 9 Plus's exclusive documentary. Thanks for watching.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. The LET, it was a kind of, we were called a joint venture of